All right, so you were just listening to Washington State Patrol. They're giving us some information that we are just learning right now. What is really stunning is we're learning the extent of this train derailment. 13 cars jumped the track. That is incredible.
Yeah, it is really tragic, and you look at the damage in there and the injuries and the fatalities, and you're talking, you know, at a minimum some broken bones, at a maximum, you know, we've already seen 6 dead, but 4 others still in critical condition right now, and the long-term effects aren't even known yet.
And as we look at these aerial images from the Seattle Times, it really wasn't clear to us the extent of that derailment. You had spoken to Pierce County Sheriff Detective Ed Troyer, who had told you, what's most serious is the part you can't see. Well, now we can see it. Now we're getting a good look at it. Something that Trooper Bova had said there that I thought was interesting is she said rescue crews have not gotten into every train car because some of them are perched so precariously that entering them, she said, would be unsafe. So at this point, according to the State Patrol, there are still some train cars of the 13 that derailed that they have not been able to enter to look and see if anyone is still in them.
So this could get worse before it gets better. That is a possibility, which we are monitoring that as we learn more, because as WSP said, they are not revealing all of the injuries at this point. We know several people are injured. I should say 2 semis also on the ground, 5 cars on the ground, all involved in this train derailment. And these pictures really do this derailment justice, just to see the extent of this tragic damage.
And the trooper had also said important, she spoke to something we have had a question about, David, you had a question about, is are they going to leave all this there until the NTSB gets there? It sounds like they are.
This is a huge choke point on I-5.
It is. From what the trooper said, she said this is going to go well into the night. She suggested that they were going to leave this scene as is, essentially, until the NTSB gets there, which we know a lot of those investigators aren't going to arrive until this afternoon or this evening. So that speaks to what Adam's been warning us about all morning, which is don't expect to use this road today.
Yeah, well, they just accordioned. I mean, if you can just imagine, they're just crushing together and flying off the track there. Let's go out to Steve Kiggins, who's been talking to people this morning about what they saw and what happened. Steve?
Yeah, David, this is the reunification center. We're down in DuPont. This is where people who were on that train were supposed to go to meet their family members, to meet their friend. These are for the folks on the train who weren't hospitalized. And you see the pictures of those train cars and how they're piled up on the ground. It's even more terrifying to see the faces on the passengers of people down here. There are people that are clearly in shock. There are people here who have clear injuries to their face, to their body, and when they talk to us, it's almost like they're talking to us out of an out-of-body experience. So there's about, this is all happening at the DuPont City Hall. We were able to hook up with a few of these passengers who were brave enough to share their experience with us. One of them is a fellow named Alexander Christensen, who tells us he's over here from Denmark. He's on vacation. We also spoke with another gentleman who, believe it or not, told us he used to be a ticket taker on Amtrak trains. I want you to listen to hear how they explain what happened the moment they knew something went wrong. Take a listen.
Everything started to shake up, and I know it wasn't just like a little something. I felt instantly that okay, this is really bad. There was a couple of people in my car that just looked like me, like a little scratch, but nothing serious in my car. It was not until like I got out of my car and saw passengers from elsewhere on the train that were hurt very, very badly.
Felt the train kind of leaning towards the side, and then pretty much everything went dark. And stuff started flying around, and that was pretty much it. And then just kind of brushing yourself off and saying, I'm okay, I guess.
Yeah, you can tell by some of those interviews, they don't really seem like they've been able to grasp exactly what they've been through. Governor Jay Inslee stopped by here, as well as the Pierce County executive. When we spoke with Governor Jay Inslee, he told us that he and the executive both had a chance to talk with some of these passengers who weren't injured enough to be taken to the hospital. And Governor Inslee tells us he wants to remind everyone within this microphone to share their thoughts and prayers for those who've survived, share your thoughts and prayers for those that are in the hospital, and unfortunately for those friends and families of those who have passed. When we talked with Governor Jay Inslee, he told us that he would anticipate this closure to be long-term. He wouldn't specify an exact number of days, but it's clear that there's going to be a lot to do in that investigation. And another thing that the county executive mentioned is that they train for mass casualty incidents like this routinely. All their first responders, their fire department agencies, their police department agencies, and you can tell it's kind of hard to see from here. This is the parking lot at the DuPont Civic Center. It is packed with first responders. They've got a bunch of volunteers here. They've got folks with medical training who are providing aid and comfort to those passengers who here really need it. And there's also, I don't know if you can see it on the right-hand side of your screen, there's also a fleet of tour buses that look like they're ready to help shuttle people back and forth, maybe to meet up with their family members. But this is where officials are telling family and friends of those who were on this train ride this morning to come meet those passengers who survived. We're going to send it back to you. We're going to continue to follow this, but we're going to send it back to you for now.
Yeah, Stephen, the South Sound 911 actually improved their systems over the last couple of years so that all of the different agencies could communicate with each other. Years ago, that was a problem for them, particularly when you got into further parts of the county. Steve, while you're still there, I'm just curious, you talked to a couple of those survivors. Did they say where they were on the train? Yeah. Because I'm just wondering if it was just kind of, you know, which car you decided to sit in, or which seat you were assigned, as to whether, you know, it was the bad luck of the draw as to, you know, who got injured worst or killed in this.
You know, some folks I talked to told me that they were sitting. Some folks I talked to said they had been standing. One fellow we talked to, and we aired his soundbite about an hour ago or so, he told me that when he takes a train ride, he likes to walk up and down. I've done it myself, and he likes to find a seat that he's comfortable in, and that's when he picked a spot on the lounge car. He said he settled in and he took a seat, and all of a sudden he says he felt the train kind of sway back and forth, and before he knew it, he says there were people and glass and debris flying all over the place. So it doesn't really, it's hard to tell whether or not where some of these injured folks, where they were on these cars, but it's just really seems amazing that the people here were able to share some of their stories with us. We're going to continue to see if they have any more stories to share with us, and more stories to share about their bravery and sometimes some of the horrible images that they had to walk past, because clearly they saw the worst of all of this. We're just seeing, you know, the images from above, but they were right there on the ground and they saw the worst of all of it.
Steve, we look at these images and, you know, if we've got a trip planned on a train coming up for the holidays, you know, a lot of us go over to Leavenworth. Train travel, for the most part, very safe, but when it does go bad, it goes bad in a horrendous fashion like this. Did those people you talked to say they'd be willing to get on the train again once this line is back up and running?
You know, David, that was mixed. It really depended on who we asked. And I think right now it would make sense, to me at least, that these people are still going through such shock, trying to collect themselves and try and understand, wrap their head around exactly what they've just been through. So maybe, you know, that would have to be something they would have to consider later on. But there were some other folks who say, yeah, we're not afraid to go back onto the trains.
Steve Kiggins in DuPont, Washington this morning. Thank you so much for talking to those survivors, those victims, sharing their stories, because like you said, they certainly have a story to tell, and what they have been through, just incredible. So appreciate you being out there, and want to let you know where Steve is at right now, because he's at the Family Reunification Center, because first responders on the scene, police, fire, saying do not go to this scene that you're looking at on your screen right now. If you're looking for friends or family members, go to DuPont City Hall. That's the Reunification Center. That's 1700 Civic Drive. Also, there is a number. It is right there on your screen that was provided by Amtrak. That is a hotline if you have any questions about family members or friends who might have been on that train. 800-523-9101. Also, in the age of social media, Facebook is doing what Facebook usually does in these types of events, where you can see they are doing sort of a check-in where you can say, hey, I'm safe. This doesn't apply to me. You, if you are in this area today, which you are, you might get asked this today. I know I did the moment I logged onto Facebook. Also, there are several ways that you can help. I know we just live in a great community, and so many viewers say, what can I do? How can I help? Bloodworks Northwest tweeting that we have issued 150 plus units of blood in response to this tragedy, creating major demands on local supply. So they're asking that you donate blood. You can do so at schedule.bloodworksnorthwest.org. You can also donate later. It's going to support the ongoing care that so many people will need. Also, just into our newsroom, want to get to this very quickly here. Alaska Airlines tweeting this morning, they are monitoring the situation very closely. Alaska Airlines offering reduced fares for guests who fly between Seattle and Portland both today and tomorrow. So several resources for victims and families of victims. Also this morning we heard from NTSB that the Rail Passenger Disaster Family Assistance Act is available for victims in this disaster. That's employees, any person that was on this train, a person who was killed or injured in this accident as well. And that's for mental health services, grieving, consultations. Those services are available. There is a lot to offer right now.
Yeah, and also the Red Cross, we're understanding, is on the scene. Our reporter Hannah Kim has spoken to them, as they are often with disasters like this. So they are to just provide absolutely anything that these families or the victims could need. So from the federal government, local level, state of emergency declared, there are some resources that are coming together very quickly to help those who are impacted.
Okay, that is great to hear. People are all coming together, as they always do in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Here's a breakdown of where the passengers are right now. Multicare says they have 14 patients at Good Samaritan Hospital, 5 at Allen Moore, and 3 at Tacoma General. Madigan Army Medical Center says that they accepted 20 patients for treatment, and that family members of patients are welcome to come to the emergency room there if you know your loved one is there. And St. Joseph Medical Center in Tacoma is treating 5 patients right now, and they're also going to be sending patients to St. Clair's, St. Anthony's, and Tacoma General, and all of the hospitals, CHI Franciscan, Madigan, and Multicare asked us to pass along how grateful they are to all of the first responders for taking the patients there and providing such good care.
And what you just outlined there is one of the reasons why this number for Amtrak and the Family Reunification Center is so important, because whenever we have these mass casualty situations, they don't just send all the patients to one hospital. If you're a family member panicking, trying to figure out, was my loved one on that train, are they okay? You have a lot of different hospitals that they could have gone to contend with. So being able to go to the reunification center, calling Amtrak, that is going to be the easiest way for you to figure out, 1, was my loved one on that train? Were they on the passenger manifest? And 2, where are they right now and how are they doing? So that's why that reunification center and that phone number, which we've been putting at the bottom of your screen throughout the morning, are so important. I want to ask you, David, while you're here, because we're having this conversation throughout the morning, our understanding is 4 of the patients were what they consider red patients, so the most severe injuries. And I was explaining how this has to do with how they handle mass casualty situations, where they literally will assign patients, they'll triage on the scene there. They'll assign patients literally a color depending on how severe their injuries are. Can you speak to, because you have a lot of experience in seeing this training firsthand, just how prepared some of these agencies are to deal with a casualty situation this severe?
Incredibly prepared,
Yeah.
particularly in Pierce County. I would say they're maybe one of the best prepared anywhere in Washington State. And when they talk about classifying the colors, you would be a green patient, you might hear about a red patient, and then a black. A code black is going to mean that patient is dead, is not going to make it. So red means that they need to be treated soon, quickly, stabilized, and immediately gotten to the hospital. So that's kind of what you hear. You hear a lot on the scanner traffic, and a lot of people listen to that, so that's where it comes through. They do a lot of training down there with the fire departments and with the law enforcement agencies, particularly to respond to stuff like this. And we saw it when the train derailed earlier this year in Pierce County, how quickly they responded to that. Unfortunately, there were no deaths in that one. But those kinds of things, when they do this a lot and they're working together a lot, it helps them be able to move much more quickly.
Yeah, and we do want to check in on Adam with sort of the traffic impact here in a second. But, you know, this scheme was described to us as really organized chaos. I mean, you think about 13 cars derailed, dozens and dozens of passengers suffering various stages of injury, but they were able, according to witnesses, to be getting these passengers out rapidly. You also had individuals who just happened to be on the interstate jump into action. There was a lieutenant colonel who was on his way to work at Madigan Army Hospital who stopped and actually went into trains that had derailed to attempt to get passengers out and to provide them first aid or medical assistance while first responders came in. And you had first responders coming from JBLM, from all over the place, the State Patrol, the Pierce County Sheriff's Office. So it really was an immense effort, as we always see during these incidents. And we're going to continue to see, because this is a scene that's not going away. And you're going to have outside agencies coming in, mutual aid, to assist some of these first responders who will be there for hours and hours on end, who at some point need to go to sleep and need a break.
And since this is a scene, like you mentioned, Brandy, that is not going away, this is also going to be a traffic issue for many people, not only around the South Sound, but also all over Western Washington. I mean, we're talking about the last week, pretty much the last week before people really get on holiday. People are traveling for the holidays. They're holiday shopping. They're heading all over Western Washington. Adam, this is going to be a huge problem. This is what you call the sort of an important choke point on I-5.
This is an important choke point. In fact, this specific stretch of I-5 is one of those points we usually see as the holiday getaways wind up. One of those points where we always see volumes and always see backups.